My name is Sarah. I used to measure my worth by the number of chairs that stayed empty at my celebrations. It was supposed to be perfect. 28 candles on a chocolate cake I'd spent 3 hours decorating myself. Fairy lights strung across my apartment's small living room like captured stars, and a playlist I'd curated with the kind of obsessive care usually reserved for wedding receptions. Every song told a story. Our story. The story of a family that used to dance together in the kitchen on Sunday mornings. I had sent the invitations 3 weeks early. Not text messages or Facebook events, but actual paper invitations with my handwriting curled across cream-colored cardstock. Sarah's 28th birthday celebration, they read, with the date, time, and a small note at the bottom. Your presence is the only present I need. I meant every word. The first excuse came 2 days before the party. Mom called while I was folding. Cloth napkins. Real cloth napkins I'd bought specifically for this night because I wanted everything to feel intentional, meaningful. Honey, I'm so sorry, but your father's back is acting up again. You know how he gets when the weather changes. I pressed the phone between my shoulder and ear, smoothing wrinkles from navy blue fabric. It's supposed to be sunny all weekend, Mom. Well, you never know. Rain might be coming. The second excuse arrived via text from my sister Jessica the morning of the party. Work emergency, rain check, love you. By evening, I had 7 messages, each one a small paper cut to something tender inside my chest. My brother David had a last-minute date. My cousin Rachel suddenly remembered a previous commitment. Uncle Tom's car wouldn't start. Aunt Linda felt a migraine coming on. 7 excuses. 7 people who had promised they'd be there, who had RSVP'd, yes, who had let me plan around their presence. I stood in my empty apartment at 6:30, wearing the dress I'd bought 2 months ago, a soft emerald green that made my eyes look like sea glass, and stared at a table set for 8. The ice was melting in the punch bowl. The cheese was sweating on the platter. The birthday playlist continued its cheerful rotation, each upbeat melody now sounding like mockery. Before we continue, drop a comment. Where are you watching this from and what time is it there? I'd love to know how far this story of quiet heartbreak is reaching. I should have canceled. I should have blown out the candles, put the cake in the refrigerator, and spent the evening in pajamas watching something mindless on Netflix. Instead, I called my coworkers. Hey, this is going to sound last minute, but I'm having a little birthday thing at my place tonight. Nothing fancy, just cake and music. Wanna come? They came. Linda from accounting brought her boyfriend. Marcus from IT showed up with a bottle of wine and stories that made me laugh until my cheeks hurt. Even my boss, stern Mrs. Peterson, stopped by for an hour and told me I had beautiful taste in decorations. We ate cake, we played charades. We talked about movies and weekend plans and the office drama that everyone pretends not to care about, but secretly loves. For 3 hours, my apartment buzzed with conversation and laughter, filled with people who chose to show up without obligation, without blood ties, without shared DNA compelling their presence. But when they left, when the dishes were stacked, in the sink and the fairy lights cast their gentle glow over empty chairs, I sat on my couch still wearing that emerald dress and felt the weight of something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't the first time. When I graduated summa cum laude from college, Mom had a dentist appointment she couldn't reschedule. Dad was playing golf. It was scheduled months ago, sweetheart. Jessica was moving into her new apartment and needed help. I walked across that stage to the sound of applause from strangers while my family missed the moment I'd worked 4 years to reach. When I got my first promotion at 25, I called to share the news. That's wonderful, honey, Mom said, but I could hear the television in the background. Could tell she was only half listening. Oh, hold on. Your father's trying to tell me something about the game. When I ran my first marathon last spring, crossing the finish line with tears streaming down my face and my legs shaking with exhaustion and triumph, I checked my phone to find a single text from Jessica. How'd it go? I'd sent updates throughout. Training. I'd shared my fundraising page for the Children's Hospital. I'd told them the exact time I expected to finish, had even sent them a map of where the best viewing spots would be along the route. None of them came. That night after the birthday party, I sat in my green dress and realized something that should have been obvious years earlier. I was always the one showing up. I was the one who never missed Jessica's work presentations, who drove 4 hours to attend David's amateur baseball games, who remembered every anniversary and birthday and graduation. I was the audience for their lives while they remained perpetually absent from mine. The realization didn't come with anger, not at first. It came with a tired sort of clarity, like finally understanding why your back has been aching and discovering you've been carrying something heavy without realizing it. I started keeping track after that, not obsessively, but with the quiet attention of someone learning a new language. Jessica's promotion party. I was there with flowers and champagne. David's engagement. I helped plan the surprise. Mom and Dad's anniversary dinner. I made reservations and coordinated with relatives. When Jessica got married 6 months later, I was her maid of honor. I organized the bachelorette party, coordinated dress fittings, spent my vacation days helping with wedding preparations. On the morning of the ceremony, I curled her hair and held her hand when she cried nervous tears. "I'm so glad you're my sister," she whispered as I fixed her veil. "I can always count on you." I smiled and squeezed her hand, but something inside me noticed how she said it, like my reliability was a given, like my presence was as automatic and unquestioned as gravity. At the reception, I watched our family dance and laugh and celebrate Jessica's happiness. I watched Mom cry proud tears during the father-daughter dance. I watched Dad give a toast about how Jessica had always been his little princess. I watched David tell embarrassing childhood stories that made everyone laugh. And I realized I was watching from the outside again, even while standing in the middle of it all. After Jessica's wedding, I began to pull back. Not dramatically, not with announcements or confrontations, but with the quiet intentionality of someone learning to redirect their energy. I stopped initiating plans. I stopped sending the first text. I stopped being the one who reached out to check in, to remember, to organize, to show up. The silence was deafening. Weeks passed without hearing from any of them. Then months. I threw myself into work with a focus I'd never experienced before, staying late not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I took on projects that challenged me, volunteered for assignments that others avoided, and discovered that when I wasn't spending all my emotional energy trying to maintain relationships that seemed to exist only when I was actively sustaining them, I had reserves I didn't know I possessed. My supervisor noticed. "Sarah, your work this quarter has been exceptional. Have you considered applying for the Morrison Fellowship?" The Morrison Fellowship. I'd heard of it. A prestigious research grant that came with a year-long sabbatical and enough funding to pursue any project you could dream up. It was the kind of opportunity that could change a career, could change a life. "I don't know if I'm qualified," I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't true. I was qualified. I was more than qualified. "Apply," she said. "What's the worst that could happen?" The worst that could happen, I thought, was that I might actually get it, that I might actually achieve something extraordinary, that I might actually become someone worth noticing. But maybe that was exactly what needed to happen. I spent 3 months on my application. I researched until my eyes burned. I wrote and rewrote my proposal until every sentence sang with precision and passion. I gathered letters of recommendation from professors who remembered me, from colleagues who had watched me grow, from mentors who saw something in me that I was just beginning to see in myself. The night I submitted the application, I celebrated alone with a bottle of wine and Chinese takeout, sitting on my couch in comfortable clothes with no one to impress and nowhere to be except exactly where I was. It felt like freedom. 3 months. Later, The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was drinking coffee and reading the news. The voice on the other end was formal, professional, and delivered words that I had to ask her to repeat because I couldn't quite believe what I was hearing. "Congratulations, Ms. Thompson. You've been selected as this year's Morrison Fellow." I set down my coffee cup with trembling hands. The Morrison Fellowship. Out of hundreds of applicants, they had chosen me. The fellowship came with more than, just funding and time. It came with recognition, with speaking engagements, with interviews and articles, and the kind of professional visibility that most people spend entire careers hoping to achieve. Within 6 months, I was presenting my research at national conferences, being quoted in academic journals, and building a reputation in my field that existed entirely separate from anyone's daughter, sister, or niece. The work was challenging, in ways that felt like coming alive. I was studying patterns of community resilience, how some groups thrived in the face of adversity, while others fractured and fell apart. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was becoming an expert in the very thing I'd been seeking all my life: belonging, connection, the invisible threads that hold people together. As my research gained attention, invitations began arriving. Could I speak at the annual conference? Would I consider writing a chapter for an upcoming book? Was I available for a panel discussion on sustainable community development? Each yes led to another opportunity and another, until I found myself building something I'd never imagined possible. A life where I was sought after, where my voice mattered, where people actively wanted my presence rather than tolerating it out of obligation. The recognition culminated in something I never could have dreamed of: the Hartwell Prize for Innovation in Social Research. It was the most prestigious award in my field, given annually to one researcher under 30 whose work showed exceptional promise for creating meaningful social change. When the nomination was announced, my phone buzzed with congratulations from colleagues, mentors, and friends I'd made in my new professional circle. People who knew my work, who respected my ideas, who valued what I brought to conversations, and conferences, and collaborative projects. The award ceremony was scheduled for a Saturday evening in December, black tie formal, with a red carpet and media coverage, and all the elements of the kind of recognition I used to fantasize about receiving someday. And that's when the messages started coming. The first one was from Mom, sent at 7:23 a.m. on a Wednesday, just 3 days after the award announcement had been published in the university newsletter. "Sarah, I just heard about your award from Mrs. Henderson next door. She saw it in the paper. We're so proud of you, honey. When is the ceremony? We'd love to be there to support you." I stared at the text for a full minute, before screenshotting it and setting my phone aside. Mrs. Henderson next door. Mom had learned about the most significant achievement of my professional life from a neighbor, not from me. The messages kept coming throughout the day. Jessica called during my lunch break, her voice bright with the kind of enthusiasm that felt both familiar and foreign. "Oh my God, Sarah. I can't believe you didn't tell us about this award thing. It sounds huge. Listen, I know this is last minute, but do you think you could get us tickets to the ceremony? I already checked my calendar and I'm totally free that night." "It's not tickets," I said quietly. "It's invitation only, and the VIP section requires special passes." "Even better. Can you get us VIP passes? I mean, we're family, right? They have to have extra for family members." David texted later that afternoon. "Heard about your big award. Way to go, sis. Can you hook me and Katie up with VIP passes? We want to celebrate with you." Then Dad called. That evening while I was making dinner, clearing his throat in that way he did when he was about to ask for something he wasn't sure he deserved. "Princess, your mother tells me you're getting some kind of important award. That's wonderful. Really wonderful." I was thinking, maybe this would be a good opportunity for the whole family to get together. It's been too long since we've all been in the same place. "Princess." He hadn't called me that in years. "The VIP passes are limited, Dad," I said, stirring pasta sauce with more force than necessary. "They're reserved for people who've been directly involved in supporting the research." "Well, surely they understand that family comes first." Can't you just explain the situation? I could have explained the situation. I could have told him that family does come first, that the VIP passes had already been allocated to Dr. Martinez, who had mentored me through the fellowship application, to Professor Chen, who had stayed late countless evenings helping me refine my research methodology, to my research assistant Jake, who had spent weekends helping me organize data, to my colleague Maria, who had introduced me to the community leaders who made my fieldwork possible. I could have explained that those passes went to people who had actually shown up. Instead, I said, I'll see what I can do. But I didn't see what I could do. I didn't make any phone calls or send any emails or pull any strings. I sat with their requests like I'd once sat with those birthday party excuses, feeling the familiar weight of expectations I'd carried for so long, I'd forgotten how heavy they were. The award ceremony was 3 weeks away, and the messages continued to arrive with increasing frequency and urgency. Jessica sent photos of dresses she was considering. David asked about parking arrangements. Mom wondered about the dress code and whether she should get her hair done. They had never asked about the dress code for my birthday parties. They had never wondered about parking for my college graduation. They had never sent photos of what they planned to wear to my marathon. But now, suddenly, they were interested in every detail. The most telling message came from Jessica on a Thursday evening. I'm so excited about this. I've already told everyone at work about my sister, the award winner. This is going to be such great publicity for our whole family. Publicity for our whole family. I set my phone down and walked to my bathroom mirror, staring at my reflection until my own face looked unfamiliar. When had I become someone whose achievements were valuable to them? When had my success become something they wanted to claim ownership of? The answer was obvious. The moment it became public. The moment it came with cameras and recognition and the kind of social capital they could leverage in their own circles. I thought about all the private victories they'd missed, the late-night breakthroughs when my research finally clicked into place. The first time a community leader told me my work had helped them secure funding for a crucial program. The morning I received the email confirming my fellowship, when I'd cried happy tears alone in my kitchen. Those moments had been mine alone, uncelebrated and unwitnessed by the people who now wanted front-row seats to the culmination. That weekend, I drove to the venue where the ceremony would be held. The Grandview Hotel ballroom was elegant in the way that made you stand a little straighter, with crystal chandeliers and walls lined with portraits of previous award recipients. I walked through the space imagining the evening, the podium where I'd give my acceptance speech, the tables where my chosen guests would sit, the moment when my name would be called, and I'd step forward to receive recognition for work that had consumed and fulfilled me in equal measure. In that quiet ballroom, I made my decision. I crafted my response carefully, spending more time on those few sentences than I'd spent on research papers. The message needed to be clear without being cruel, final without being dramatic. Thank you all for your congratulations and for wanting to celebrate this achievement with me. Unfortunately, VIP passes are extremely limited and have already been allocated to the individuals who provided direct support during the research process. I hope you understand. I sent the same message to each of them, then turned off my phone and spent the evening reading a novel that had nothing to do with community resilience or social research or family dynamics. The responses came the next day, and they revealed everything I needed to know about where I stood in their hierarchy of priorities. Mom, I'm disappointed, Sarah. Family should come first. I hope you'll reconsider. Jessica, this is really unfair. We're your family. We should get priority over some random work people. David, seriously? You can't get us in? I already told people I was going. Dad didn't respond at all. Their disappointment felt familiar, but this time it didn't reach the tender place inside, me that had absorbed so many previous hurts. This time, it bounced off something harder, something I'd built during those months of focusing on my work instead of their approval. The night of the ceremony arrived with December snow falling softly outside my apartment window. I put on a black dress that made me feel powerful, not the eager-to-please green dress from my birthday party, but something sleek and confident that reflected who I'd become rather than who I'd been hoping to be. Jake picked me up at 6, and we rode to the hotel with Dr. Martinez and Professor Chen, talking about the research projects we were each planning for the coming year. In the IUN car, surrounded by people who knew my work intimately and respected my contributions, I felt something I'd been seeking all my life. I felt seen. The ballroom was transformed, filled with academics and researchers and community leaders from across the country. I recognized faces from conferences, names from papers I'd cited, people whose work had influenced my own thinking. This was my professional family, the community I'd built through shared interests and mutual respect rather than shared DNA. As I walked through the reception, colleagues approached to congratulate me, to ask about my research, to share their own projects, and seek my input. These conversations felt different from the obligatory small talk of family gatherings. Here, people were interested in my ideas, not just my presence. They valued my perspective, not just my attendance. The ceremony itself was elegant and meaningful. When they called my name, I walked to the podium with steady legs and a clear voice. I looked out at the audience and saw the faces of people who had chosen to be there, who understood the significance of the work being recognized, who had supported me not because they had to, but because they believed in what I was doing. My acceptance speech was brief but heartfelt. I thanked my mentors, my research subjects, my colleagues who had pushed me to think more deeply and work more rigorously. I talked about the communities that had opened their doors to me, the individuals who had shared their stories, the collaborative nature of meaningful research. I didn't mention family, and for the first time in my life, that absence felt intentional rather than painful. After the ceremony, as photographers took pictures and reporters asked questions, I spotted familiar faces near the back of the ballroom. Mom, Dad, Jessica, and David stood together by the registration table, looking uncomfortable in their formal wear and unsure of how to navigate a space where they didn't belong. They had come anyway, somehow securing general admission tickets, showing up uninvited to claim their place in my moment of triumph. For a brief second, my old instincts kicked in. I felt the familiar pull to go to them, to make them comfortable, to apologize for not including them, and to thank them for coming despite everything. But then I remembered the empty chairs at my birthday party. I remembered the silence after my graduation. I remembered the pattern of absence that had shaped so much of my adult life. Instead of approaching them, I turned toward my table, where Dr. Martinez was saving me a seat and Jake was holding a glass of champagne with my name on it. These were my people, the ones who had shown up not just tonight, but through all the nights when the work was hard and the recognition was distant, and the only reward was the satisfaction of pursuing something meaningful. As I sat down, I saw my family making their way toward me through the crowd. But the evening was ending. People were beginning to leave, and there was no natural space for the conversation they seemed to want to have. Jessica reached me first, her smile bright but strained. "Sarah, congratulations. This is so incredible." "Thank you," I said, standing but not moving toward her. "I'm surprised to see you here." "We couldn't miss this," Mom said, appearing beside Jessica with Dad and David close behind. "We're so proud of you, honey. So very proud." "We managed to get last-minute tickets," Dad added. "It wasn't easy, but family finds a way." Family finds a way. I almost laughed at the irony. They had found a way to be present for my public triumph, but had never found a way to show up for my private struggles or quiet victories. "It's a lovely ceremony," I said, keeping my voice polite but distant. "I'm glad you could make it." The conversation continued for a few more minutes, awkward and surface level, with them asking questions about the award and making comments about the venue while I gave brief, courteous responses. It felt like talking to acquaintances, people you're happy to see but don't particularly miss when they're gone. When they finally left, promising to call soon and suggesting we should get together for dinner to really celebrate. I felt nothing more than mild relief that the interaction was over. Later that night, back in my apartment with my award on the coffee table and my dress hanging in the closet, I reflected on the evening. I thought about the moment my name was called, about the applause from people who understood what it meant, about the conversations afterward with colleagues who wanted to discuss my research and explore potential collaborations. Most of all, I thought about how it felt to be recognized for work I'd done independently, achievements I'd earned through my own effort and dedication, success that belonged entirely to me. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Great seeing you tonight. Can we get together for lunch this week? I want to hear all about your research." I smiled and set the phone aside without responding. Maybe I would have lunch with her, and maybe I wouldn't. For the first time in my adult life, my family's interest in my life felt optional rather than essential, nice to have rather than desperately needed. I had learned something crucial during those months of pulling back, of focusing on my work, of building relationships with people who chose to know me rather than people who were obligated to love me. Some kinds of hunger can only be satisfied when you stop trying to feed them. I used to measure my worth by the number of empty chairs at my celebrations. Now I measured it by the fullness of the work I was doing, the meaning I was creating, the communities I was serving, and the respect I had earned from people who valued what I brought to the world. The next morning, I woke up to 17 congratulatory emails from colleagues, 3 interview requests from publications in my field, and 2 invitations to speak at upcoming conferences. My phone showed missed calls from Mom and a text from David asking if I wanted to grab coffee soon. I responded to the professional emails first, accepting the interviews and conference invitations. Then I made coffee and sat down to plan my next research project, surrounded by the quiet satisfaction of a life built on my own terms. Eventually, I would probably call my family back. I would probably have that lunch with Jessica and that coffee with David. But I would do it from a place of choice, rather than obligation, strength rather than hunger, completion rather than yearning. The girl who used to wait by the phone for their attention, who used to plan her celebrations around their schedules, who used to shrink herself to fit into the spaces they offered. That girl was gone. In her place was a woman who had learned that the most important applause comes from the work itself, and that sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the permission to stop performing for an audience that was never really watching anyway. They had missed my birthday party, but I had found my birthday gift. The understanding that I was already whole, already enough, already worthy of celebration, with or without them there to witness it.